Hello and welcome to Report Desk Africa. We're terribly sorry for commencing late due to some technical difficulties, but we're here now, and this is the program where you get your weekly source of insight and background on the biggest stories unfolding across the African continent. Now, RDA guides you through the events shaping Africa from the perspective of journalists who cover these stories firsthand. We do not just cover these stories, we also come back to analyze it and prefer profound solutions. I am your co-host for today, Blessings Musugo, and I said co-host because I have someone else beside me.
Nice one. And I am Ni Omani, and of course, just as she mentioned, we try to give a journalistic angle to some of the reports you see which cut across Africa. That is hot button issues, from political issues to conflict, economic development, and even technological issue. And I can promise you that today's show is going to be an exciting one. As she has said, we're starting a little bit late, but we can promise you still going to get the same excited package as you would get on any other of our episode. And today we'll be focusing on...
Of course we will. Well, we couldn't take you through the forecast last week as we delved straight into discussions for the Ecowas resolution that happened in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. And we will definitely tell you more on the issue surrounding the Niger coup on today's episode. Well, it's still, the Niger coup is still unfolding, unfortunately. I'll put it that way, because as of now, people would have expected that, it would have been dialed down a little bit. But it's like every effort, especially from the Ecowas, is, going to vain.
Well, the good thing right now is the UNTAs are ready to talk. Previously, they were not ready to have that kind of conversations. And, everyone was kind of skeptical on what decision they want to make next, what's the next move, and thinking of the fact that even rebel groups are now beginning to stand up for themselves and saying, we want to change, we want to do something about the situation. They might not be equipped enough, they might not be mentally equipped enough, they might not be, in terms of training, equipped enough to do so, but they've taken the mantle upon themselves to say, let's take back our country. It might not be the right step, although personally, I actually feel that this is how rebels actually develop in countries. And we have, for a country already dealing with insecurity, it might not be the best of move. But hey, here we are. But the good thing is the UNTAs are ready to talk. Yeah. And that is the right move in the right direction.
I think that what is more worrisome is the fact that, especially for the United States, Italy and France, and for the Western countries, the fact that Niger has been known to be a middle ground when it comes to dousing tension and fighting Islamist insurgents. And now it's looking like they will now be a fertile ground for Islamic insurgents.
And coming to realize that, and which is what is making me understand that there might be more to this, because Niger is a country that has much of uranium and oil deposit. So are we looking at some other foreign interest? Because I got to realize that US, France, Germany, Italy all have troops in Niger before now. And until now, some of them still have it there. And of course, the Wagner Group is also trying to infiltrate and gain some positions. But all this will unfold. But what I've said from the beginning is we are happy now that talks have been open, and we hope that we get the best. Thank God we have a correspondent there who we can also speak with.
Of course, speaking of correspondent, I think it's time to bring him in. Well, we have Bernard Akede. Ni, please do the honors of bringing him.
Yes, we have Bernard Akede, who earlier today was at Koni Town in Niger Republic. No, a border between Koni Town for Niger Republic and Ilela, a town also in Sokoto which borders Niger. Bernard Akede, our correspondent currently in Sokoto. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you for having me. Salam alaikum.
Okay. I was just about to ask whether you're standing in Nigeria or Niger Republic. Which one are you in? Are you Nigerian or Nigerian at this moment?
I'm in no man's land at the moment.
Okay, Bernard, very quickly, can you tell us how what the mood there is like, what it's been covering things in that area?
All right. Clearly, the people in Nigeria, talking about, like Nick clearly mentioned, is Ilela, that's what the border town is called. It borders Koni town in Niger Republic, actually. Now, between those two towns, there's a free space that's called no man's land, and that's why I mentioned that. According to what I was told, it's not owned by anybody. Now, the feeling between the both countries, or the both border towns, in Nigeria, in Ilela, the people there, clearly their lives have been altered. The way they live has been altered, particularly their businesses. Now, every border town around the world is an economic town, a commercial hub or a commercial town, as they say. because there's movement of goods and services. You're just at the edge of another country. So everything that is needed passes through the border into another country. In this case, you have goods coming from as high up the African continent as Algeria coming into Nigeria. But the challenge now is that at the border there, Niger has opened their own border, but because of the Ecowas ruling, the borders of other West African countries have been shut to Niger. So goods coming through Niger from as far as Algeria, from Burkina Faso, from Guinea, from Ghana, and of course from Niger, cannot make their way into Nigeria. And that has been the case in the past about 2 weeks or even more than 2 weeks. We saw trucks lined up at the border entrance carrying different products, date foods coming from Algeria, fabrics coming from Burkina Faso, furniture coming from Guinea and from Niger. We're all stuck at the border. Now, the issue is that the people who are bringing these products have been there for so long that they've run out of resources, out of money, out of supplies. And now they need supplies from wherever it comes. The fear now that has been projected is the fact that they may begin to get desperate to find ways to push their goods through the border so that they can eventually make sales. And of course, as they do say, desperate times would come for desperate measures. Now, on the other side of the border, talking about Nigeria, which is where we were today, and we did a lot of rounds on the Ilela side of the country, in Sokoto State, where we are at the moment. It also is affecting the people's lives. Now, again, as I mentioned, it's a commercial town, which means that the people who move goods from Nigeria into Niger, that has been their source of livelihood for years, now are on hold for quite a few weeks. I'll quickly run through that. We were able to see some tankers carrying LPG, liquefied petroleum gas. These LPG, some have come all the way from Lagos, some from Kano, supposed to go into Niger. Now, this has caused two things. First of all, the tankers are on standstill. They cannot move, which means that the tanker drivers cannot make money. The flip side of the story is that they cannot get gas into Niger, which means Nigerians are having less gas supply than they should. So, then you could say ECOWAS's, sanctions are beginning to work gradually, depriving Nigerians or the Niger junta certain supplies, actually.
So, Ben, let me stay with that, because where there is stringent rules, I want to believe that some people still try their best to want to maneuver. And there might be some sort of, with the African mentality, some sort of racketeering that could happen. Did you observe at any points where you were standing across the border, some people trying to smuggle things across the border? Because I'm sure some Nigerians actually would have Nigerians as friends that they want to pass things to. And what was the security situation like?
Now, not just friends, even as family members, there are Nigerians who have married Nigerians. We got to find that out today, and that's another story to tell. But of course, when you have people who live in close proximity, who have similar culture, similar language, similar religion, and they've been living like that together, exchanging goods and services, when the border closes, they still will have to find a way to do these things. So like Greg mentioned, it's a possibility. I cannot confirm. But it's a possibility that, as I mentioned earlier, desperate times do call for desperate measures. They will try to find ways to get goods and services across the border. And of course, that means doing it illegally. However, we were able to speak and to meet with operatives of the Nigerian Customs, Nigerian Immigration Services, and of course, what's the third one now? The DSS, who are manning the border. There's a Nigerian police as well, and the Nigerian army are all manning the borders. And they are ensuring that no one crosses the border to or fro illegally. But like I mentioned, who's to say, once people get desperate, they have to find a way to survive. So that would be a challenge for our security operatives at the border at the moment.
With these clips we were seeing on the screen, do we know if some of these goods these people are carrying are perishable?
Yes, actually, a good number of them are perishable. Before we arrived at the border, we heard that there were onions, trailer loads of onions that were around the border, and a good number of them went bad. Imagine keeping onions for 15 days in those types trailers. As a matter of fact, we heard that the place was really filled with date foods, all the way from Algeria. Some of that probably has started going bad. There were others with non-perishable items like cement for building, like furniture to sell, like fabrics, from different parts. So the non-perishable ones have been there. But now the problem is the perishable ones will go bad. The non-perishable ones, there's the fear of theft, that people may begin to pilfer some of the products that are in there, especially the ones that one can pick with hands. And once that begins, because these people have to find a way to live, like I said, if it steps from those carrying it themselves just to make a living, or from people around, you can never tell. Again, desperate times will call for desperate measures. So
Right.
you can see that the closure of the border actually is taking its toll on business owners who are trying to move their goods to and from.
Okay, Bernard, let's go back to the cause of the issue. Now, the coup in Niger is quite an interesting one, and I say that because this is the 5th time there's a coup in Niger. But unlike the others, this time around, there are different neighboring countries going into a fight or intending to. Now, some are trying to go into a fight to scuttle the coup, and some are trying to, make sure the coup is a success. But in all of this, we're now hearing that there is a possibility that the Ecowas is about to unleash the lion, and by lion I mean the ECOMOG. And analysts have speculated that that is not the way forward. Is there any development regarding that from that area?
Well, I've been asked this question several times. In fact, just before this program started, I would mention his name. And there's one of our regular callers into our TV station who is an analyst, and he called to ask if I had seen any sign of the ECOMOG, like you said, the ECOWAS lion, around the area. No is the answer. I haven't seen any sign. The only sign of security operatives around the area that one can see, again, as I mentioned, officers of the DSS, of immigration services, customs, the police, and the Nigerian army. So it's not as if, well, I do not know if eventually ECOMOG is unleashed upon Niger, if I can use that language. They will be aligning the borders and act like border patrol officers. I do not know if that's the case, or if there will be certain places where they will go, if they will actually enter into the country. But as of now, there's been no sight of ECOMOG soldiers or ECOMOG contingents, whether coming from Nigeria or any other country, going to stand guard in or around Niger at the moment. But again, Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who chairs ECOWAS, of course, in the last extraordinary summit, did also say, and it was also read out at the communique, that if they would try to negotiate with the junta in Niger, but where need be, where necessary, then they will use force. Each time they say they will use force, of course, we know they're talking about ECOMOG. So nothing has happened of yet. Also, to answer another question you asked, the people are hoping that force will not be used. Of course, nobody wants conflict. Nobody wants any kind of conflict, basically, especially the one that would need the use of force, military force in particular. Dialogue is the way everybody is hoping, and everybody is hoping that dialogue eventually will bring some resolution to the matter on the table.
Answer this. Currently, the Niger Republic Defense Ministry says about 17 of its soldiers are dead, and that comes from the fight against the rebel group that are beginning to spring forth in this particular country. And the departure of the French troops recently has left a very, very big security vacuum in this country. And we're looking at it like, okay, let's assume that ECOWAS decides not to do anything, or they decide to even do something and unleash the lion, just as Blessings have noted. From what you could observe from the trading relationships at the border there, from people on this side, on Nigeria's side, and from people you can see just from where you were standing earlier today at the Niger side, what major effect do you think? Because these are the first points of contact. I do understand we have about 7 states that borders Niger to Nigeria. And from your own perspective, from what you could see there, what would be the first major challenge the people at this border will be facing?
Bernard, are you there?
I don't know if we still have Bennett.
Okay, well, while we wait for Bennett, I think I'm going to bring back the conversation we were having before the show. I remember saying that I read somewhere, or I saw someone talk in an interview, and the person says, it seems as though ECOWAS and every other body interested in this issue has reached a crossroad. Because let's take, for example, the military junta now says that they will prosecute the 63-year-old Mohamed
for treason.
For treason. Now, let's say that ECOWAS is able to fight this issue, and then the country returns to constitutional order. Who will protect the military leaders? And let's say that at the end of the day, the military wins and takes over. Who will protect Bazoum? So it's like a crossroad.
But the truth is that there are constitutions to all those things. One thing is sure. Whoever is flouted the law under the constitution must be punished. there are laws and there are constitutional acts that have been raised for this. And if you've gone against what the law of the land is saying, I believe you should serve the punishment. For someone, the person we're talking about here, the junta himself, was head of security for 12 years.
Yeah.
If he really wanted what's best for the country, he would have handed it over to someone else who he feels can take over.
But I mean, speaking of the law of the land, now, if you look at it critically, you see that some Nigerians are actually happy that the military is taking over.
I won't put the word happy to it.
Well, satisfied, maybe.
I won't put the word satisfied to it. It's related to what is happening in, let's say, Kenya, for example. The people are protesting against the fuel subsidy.
Yeah.
It's not like they were happy with the fact that they wanted to support Raila Odinga, but or they were against Ruto, but because Raila Odinga could sink into what sympathizes with their problem at the time. It's not like maybe he had their best interest at heart.
I mean,
so this junta, I'm not sure has their best interest at heart.
It's looking like it. So it's like, it's at this point, it's looking like the devil you know is better than the angel you don't. Now, I'm not saying
this is a democratically elected president. Let's not forget, the people went to the polls to vote.
Yes, but it doesn't mean that they won't be satisfied with what he did.
But they're not even giving him time.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. The junta can't come out here now to say that they are doing everything in the best interest of the people.
Yeah, well, I think we have Bernard back. Bernard, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm here with you. I can hear you guys.
Okay, yeah, I think you were saying something.
Yes, I was talking about, I think I've lost the trail of thought.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, we're just talking about something. I don't know if you were following on the conversation.
Previously, we asked what was the direct impact of what the fallout of whatever it is the action ECOWAS would take on the immediate people we have at the border from the Nigerian side and, of course, the Nigerian side.
Okay, so of course, you know, there will be physical impact and there will be direct or indirect impact on the people on both sides, Nigeria and Niger, depending on whatever actions that ECOWAS takes. Now, already people are feeling the impact, as I mentioned. Yesterday, we looked at the economic, while I went to the border, I was looking at the economic impact that the closure of the border and the actions of ECOWAS has on the people there. We could tell, as I mentioned earlier, that goods could not come into Nigeria from Niger. But again, like I said, to other countries around. Now, goods will not come in from Niger, but also that corridor there is not just from Niger. It comes from as far as Algeria, through Ghana, Algeria through Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali, Ghana possibly. So some of these countries are also having issues with getting their goods into Nigeria. On the Nigerian side, there also is the impact because getting goods from Nigeria out to Niger or to other parts of Africa is also a challenge. LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, cannot get into Niger and cannot go beyond Niger to other countries because Niger is, is a passageway basically. So people who have goods or services who live in Nigeria cannot do business anymore outside Nigeria going via that route. And then people doing businesses from other African countries cannot get in, and that's just economic impact, right? Now the human angle, which is what I try to look at today, is the fact that there are people who have family members. Now, Ilela community is pretty much similar to Koni community in Niger Republic. If not for geographical division, you would have called them the same. The only difference is that some people in Koni speak French, and then their currency also is different. But in parts of Koni, you can spend Naira. In parts of Ilela here, you can also spend CFA francs as they use. So that's the challenge that the people are having at the moment, basically. So it's affecting the lives of both people around the area, not just economically, but also it's affecting them, it's affecting their lives generally.
Okay, Bernard, very quickly.
So whatever actions ECOWAS takes.
Okay. Apologies for interrupting, but very quickly, I would like to know, now earlier I mentioned that one of the fears that the Western countries have is the fact that, I mean, if you look at Niger Republic before now, it was, a conduit between these countries, and it was also helping them fight Islamist insurgencies. But now it's looking like Niger Republic has become fertile ground for such insurgencies. But another fear that they have is the presence of the Russian Wagner group in the country. A lot of people are saying that serves as a heavy influence on Niger Republic, because it looks like they probably wouldn't have the lever, so to say, to embark on a coup if the Wagner group wasn't present. So it's like bad influence, sort of.
Okay, so first of all, it's beginning. I was listening to the conversation you both were having before you introduced me onto the show, and you were saying it's looking like certain countries are now having some kind of interest in Niger, not just in Niger, in Africa, as a matter of fact. Now, the West has been relating with Africa for a while, and things have not exactly been a bed of roses for African countries. And now that certain African countries are beginning to stand up, we've seen coups in the likes of Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and now Niger, who have things in common. First of all, they are all colonies or ex-colonies of France. Now we are seeing that they are tilting, or swinging their pendulum towards the Eastern power bloc, talking about the likes of Russia or even China. So it seems like, yes, there may be some kind of interest in these particular countries. And yes, of course, I think the way I'd like to put it is, like we usually say, nature doesn't like vacuum. So if there's a force leaving these countries, they may want to fill it up with another force. And the available force at the moment, it seems to be the Wagner Group. The Wagner Group is willing to give money, willing to give resources to Niger. And of course, their arms are open right now to collect whatever they can from whoever is willing to support, because there are heavy restrictions and sanctions from ECOWAS. But now here's the challenge. Our camera operator, Thomas, was discussing with me while we were shooting today, and he said, there's something that we've been seeing that is a pattern in many African countries that have experienced coups. Not just African countries, but many countries that have clashes and crises. You see that when there is sanctions from organizations like ECOWAS or bodies that govern these groups, the problem now is because they cannot get supplies. They are open, and they are very, very they are very open actually to anybody who is willing to bring stuff to them. Case in point, you see insurgencies like Blessings mentioned earlier. You see groups like insurgent groups, terrorist organizations willing to give them money, to give them supplies for for them to pick up arms in return. So there is the fear. If you leave a vacuum, you just might be opening a window or a portal for other groups to now have to now come in and disturb.
Okay, Bennett, thank you so much for giving us updates, and thank you for giving us updates on what's happening at that location where you're at. I can't pronounce it. That's why I keep shifting it over to me to do that.
And Nigeria.
Okay, great. But I just know that at this point in time, you're Nigerian. But thank you so much for joining us.